So today I have for you my February wrap-up, wrapping up all the books that I read in the month of February. I have 14 books here to show you, so let's just get straight into it. First book I read was Blindsided by Natalie Whipple. I picked this book up when I was interning at a publishing company, but I didn't know it was actually a second book in the series, and I was kind of thrown into this world where I kind of had no idea what was going on, and whilst I gasped it, I think because of that, I just didn't really enjoy the book. Like, I read the whole book, I could understand most of it, but there were just still some things that I missed. I just didn't really connect to the characters, and I'm not sure if that's because I should have read the first book first, but yeah, because of that like whole debacle, I think I rated this book a 2 out of 5 stars. It does follow these teenagers who do have superpowers, and our main character is invisible, as you can see here by the cover. After that, I picked up Vivian vs. the Apocalypse and Vivian vs. America, both by Katie Coyle. I can only tell you what the first book is about, obviously, because I would spoil the second book, but this first book is about Vivian, who is a girl who lives in America, and this whole Church of America is a thing, and it's predicting doomsday. It's gonna happen. Vivian doesn't believe it, but a lot of America do, but then suddenly all these people go missing, including her parents, and it looks like doomsday has approached. And so Vivian goes on this road trip across America to try and find her parents and to try and find out what really happened. I enjoyed this series. I rated the first book a 4 out of 5 stars and this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I definitely thought the first book was a bit better in just the execution and the plot and the storyline, and I was definitely more intrigued. Like, I really wanted to know what had happened. Where in this book, it was still good, but I was just more on the edge of my seat during this one. Like, I wanted to know what was happening, and this one didn't really have that same captivating feeling as the first book, but I still enjoyed it. And then I read Circus Unseen by Joanne Owen. I think this is a children's book, maybe. Thinking back on it, maybe a middle grade, maybe a young adult, I don't know, but I just didn't enjoy it. I rated it a 1 out of 5 stars. I finished it because it's only like a really short book, but I just really didn't enjoy it. And it's really weird, and it follows a girl named Rosie who one day her grandmother dies, and then she has an accident in her grandmother's old house, and then she goes to this weird circus where she's told she can't leave. But she's unlike the other people in this circus, as she doesn't seem to be fully dead, and she starts causing these strange things to happen in this circus. The premise of this is interesting, but I just didn't really like the way it was executed. I didn't really connect to the main characters. This book wasn't for me, whatever reason, and I just didn't enjoy it. Then I read Belle Epoque? I don't know, by Elizabeth Ross. This book was really interesting. I went into this book not knowing what it was about, and wow, I didn't expect what I read. It's about this 16-year-old girl named Maud who runs a raid to Paris. It's historical fiction. I think it's set in either the 1800s or the 1900s. I can't remember right now. But anyway, Maud becomes desperate for money, so she finds this job advertised. So she signs up for this job, she gets this job, but it's actually not a job that she was expecting. You see, she is hired by a company that hires ugly people, including Maud, and they're hired out to rich people to make the rich people like look better, and it follows her journeys in that, and it was really interesting. I think it had like a really strong sense of feminism in this book too, and I just really enjoyed it. It was definitely like missing something for me, but I can't put my finger on what, but I did rate it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. It definitely wasn't fantastic. I did really like the historical elements to it and the feminism elements to it. I'd never heard of this thing before, so it was interesting to read about and slightly horrifying too. It's so hot. It's 31 degrees inside. As soon as I'm done this video, I'm putting on the aircon and just dying next to it. After that, I read The Vincent Boys and The Vincent Brothers, both by Abby Glimes. This, I believe, is a You Adult series, and wow, is it steamy. I can only obviously tell you what the first book is about because I don't want to spoil the second book, but it follows a girl named Ashton who is a preacher's daughter, and she's good and she's kind, and she's dating Sawyer, who is like gentleman and perfect, and like they're gonna get married basically. Like, they're like the perfect couple. But then one day Sawyer goes on holiday and she reconnects to her other friend, Bo, which is Sawyer's cousin. They had a great friendship back, and Ashton starts to realize that she doesn't want to be the perfect girl again. She wants to be herself, what she used to be, who wasn't the perfect girl. She wants to be that girl again, and Bo is helping her bring her out of it, and she also can't help but fall for Bo, and she knows it's wrong, but she's really connected to him, and they both have this attraction that they both can't deny. Definitely for an older audience. At some points it was kind of ridiculous, like I laughed out loud in it. I just couldn't take it too seriously. I don't know. I don't read erotica much, so it wasn't like, you know, I couldn't really take it too seriously. But I did enjoy it. It was just a fun read. Like, I enjoyed knowing what was going to happen. Like, I wasn't reading it for the sexy times. I was just reading it because it was there. And even though like I didn't read it because of the sexy times, I do appreciate that sexy times are in books. I think they should be in more books, especially YA books, because let's face it, all young adults are going to be going through experiencing sexy times, and it doesn't have to be much, but it should be included in young adult books. Like, it doesn't have to be a full out 50 Shades of Grey scene, but at least admit that we're gonna do more than kiss and hold hands. And I think YA really needs to represent that. I just really love to see more sex represented in YA books. But anyway, I rated, I think, both of these books. I think I rated this one like a 4-ish and this one like a 3.5, 3. I definitely enjoyed the first book better, but I still enjoyed this one too. Then I read Being a Girl by Hayley Long. I thought this would be interesting to read because I never really read much of this when I was growing up, so I thought it would be interesting to go back and read something like this now and see what I thought of it. I think I'm rating it 2.5 out of 3 stars. It was really good. Obviously it's meant for younger audience. If you do not know, it's basically like a girl's like teenage guide, like, and it talks about stuff like periods and boys and shaving your legs and all that fun stuff. There's a little bit of humor in here and it was a fun book. Obviously, like, I'm old, but it was just interesting to read and everything and just, you know, go back into that mindset. It was definitely a helpful book and I'll probably be passing it on to my little sister or something like that. Then I picked up something completely different. I went to A Girl's Guide on Periods to Say Her Name by James Dawson. Oh my gosh, I love this book. Yes, 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 yes. Basically, I was obsessed with like the Bloody Mary tale back in primary school and I really wanted to do it. I never had the courage to do it. I still haven't done it to this day and I probably never will after reading this book. This book follows 3 teenagers who will one day do Bloody Mary. They say her name 5 times in front of a mirror or 4 times or however many times it is, and then suddenly they each get an anonymous message saying 5 days, and then she starts to go down. They start to see her in every mirror, in every surface, and bad stuff starts happening, and they realize that they have 5 days to figure out how to stop her before they go missing and probably most likely die. Most of the horror books I do read don't really frighten me, but this is the one that has come the most closest to frightening me. I still wasn't frightened, but like I read it at like 3 o'clock at night, so I used to like run back to the bedroom like all frightened and be like, oh, I'm gonna tuck into the covers and snuggle up to my partner. I really enjoyed it. I remember reading this like I couldn't look at any mirrors at night time just in case I saw Bloody Mary there. If I had, I probably would have shit my pants, to be honest. I really enjoyed this book though, and I rated it a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I was a little bit hesitant going into this book because I have heard so many mixed things about it and I kind of sit in the middle after reading it. I think I'm rating it a 3, a 3.5. The first half for me was very average. I mean, it was just what it was. It wasn't anything special. It was just another book, to be honest, and so I didn't really think much of it. The second half definitely picked up though, and I enjoyed it more, and I also felt myself connecting to the characters more. And at the end of it, I really wanted to pick up the sequel and know what happens next. Like, someone please send me Glass Sword. My camera died because it was too hot, so if the angling has changed slightly, that's why. Anyway, let's get back into what I was saying. So in this world, there are 2 types of blood. There are reds and silvers. Reds are the commoners, just the peasants of the world, and silvers are the elite people. Silvers have powers. And our main character is a red, a commoner, or so she thought, until one day she discovers that she has powers, these lightning abilities that might make her silver, but her blood is still red. No one knows what's going on, but she is dragged into the silver world with promises of betrayal and deceit, and that if she doesn't follow the rules, she may very well die, and so may her friends and family. As I said, I definitely enjoyed the second half better than the first half, and I'm really excited to read the sequel and see where this series goes. Next, I read Anything That Isn't This by Chris Presently. I really enjoyed this book. It's very different though. Kind of think of George Orwell 1984, except young adult, and then you have this. It follows this boy named Frank who lives in this boring city full of boring people. The world is very mediocre. It's just, I guess, like a dystopian world in a way, where no one really thinks for themselves. Each family has this student that like takes note of them and notes down everything they do and then goes back to the government and tells them, so in case that household is doing something naughty, the government will know. And it's just like a really boring and blank, and nobody thinks for themselves, and Frank just wants anything that isn't that. He wants colour, and so then one day he finds a note in a bottle that says anything that isn't this, and his journey kind of begins in a way. It's very interesting. A lot of people call this book very depressing and bleak, and whilst it's not very light-hearted, like you're not going to go into this book and like expect a very happy fun read, this book isn't for you. It was definitely thought-provoking. There were some things that kind of didn't make sense or weren't explained very well in this book, like there's this invisible lizard or some shit like that. I don't know, and it's not really explained, but I still really enjoyed it. It was very different and unique and interesting, and I enjoyed it. I can definitely see how it could not be everyone's cup of tea, but for me, enjoyed it. I rated this book a 4 out of 5 stars. Then I read The Boy with the Tiger's Heart by Lindy Cogan. I went into this book with really high expectations because it follows a girl named Nona who has been raised by dogs and like feared by humans. And I've read a couple of other books where the main protagonist has been raised by dogs and I've absolutely loved them. Like the stories are so unique and beautiful and enriching, and like I thought the same with this book would happen, but it didn't. This book was very different and I didn't really enjoy that. This is a haunting and unforgettable modern fable about bravery, untamed places, and what it is that makes us human. Honestly, I had no idea what makes us human at the end of this book. It was very confusing and strange and weird. I just didn't really enjoy it. I rated it a 2 out of 5 stars, but it's definitely not one I'll be keeping. It was a big letdown, to be honest. And then I read Counting Stars by Kara Stanton, and again I kind of had high expectations for this, not because I'd heard anything about it, I hadn't, but for the premise of it, it sounded really interesting. It follows this girl named Anna who moves to Liverpool in England. She's just finished school, she doesn't want to go to university, so instead she gets set up with a full-time job. That full-time job, however, breaks through her, but she doesn't want to move, so she's got to find like a new job. She's also living like on her own for the first time with all these flatmates away from her parents, so she's discovering that. And not only that, she's also like a vlogger here on YouTube. I thought it would be really interesting. It sounded like a lot of elements that I'm interested in, especially like the vlogger aspect. And for the most part, I did really enjoy this book, but the conflict kind of was a big letdown. It says in the blurb that when her job falls through, following her dreams proves harder than she thought, so instead Anna throws herself into a busy city life. Hanging out with her new housemates provides lots of drama and scandal for a vlog, but when a real life celebrity gets involved, suddenly the consequences of Anna's online gossiping are too real. So you think that that's going to be like a main aspect of the story, at least half of the story, like, you know, this conflict. And honestly, I was reading this book and I was like, when is the conflict going to happen? When is the conflict going to happen? It got to like here and the conflict happened. I'm not even kidding. And then shit just went down for like every single character. Every single character had something horrible happen to them, and then literally everything was resolved in the next chapter. Everything. And it was just the biggest letdown. It was unrealistic of just how everything was just suddenly resolved. Everything just went down. I just, for that, had to knock off a lot, and I ended up rating this book a 3 out of 5 stars. Like it would have got like maybe a 4, but for that, like it knocked it down. Like realistically, I would maybe even rate it a 2.5. Like that conflict ending though is just, no, don't do that. And then I read Rogue by Julia Kagawa. This is the sequel to Talon, which I can't really get into what it is about because obviously it's a sequel, but I really enjoyed this book. This series is definitely a fun contemporary series. Don't read it as a fantasy series. You're gonna be disappointed. This book though definitely does have more dragon elements than the first book did, but it's still not very much fantastical. But honestly, what I love about this series is it's just fun. Like I don't have to think. I can just read this book and enjoy it and have a good time. Like it's got a love triangle in here, guys, and you know I hate love triangles, but it's not that bad because I'm not taking this like seriously, and for that I'm just loving it. This book wasn't as good as the first book, but I still think I rated it like a 3.5, 4 stars. I'm just still really enjoying this series. It's like my guilty pleasure series in a way, I guess. So these are all the books that I read in the month of February. Let me know in the comments below what you read in this month. Obviously I've read 14 books. I could have read more, but I've been sick for the last half of the month and I don't really read that much when I'm sick, so that was a little bit of a letdown, but I'm hoping it kind of picks up again in March. We'll see how I go though and how long this sickness kind of prolongs. As I was saying anyway, let me know in the comments below what your favorite read of the month was. Mine, I don't know what it was. Maybe say her name. I don't know. I can't tell you. I read some pretty good books this month and some okay books. It was kind of a mixed month for me. Anyway, like this video if you liked it, subscribe if you'd like to see more book related videos than me, and I will see you next time. Okay, bye!